you saw 2 people come in, you started seeing 4 people come in, and then you started seeing 10 people come in, and then you started seeing 20, and then it became, a pipe dream to have a second studio. The second studio became a necessity, not a desire, because we were turning people away from our first studio. And, that was the last thing that we ever wanted.
What it takes to scale, to open new location, and what can you do to make this as simple as possible? Welcome to Top Rated Gym, the podcast that helps ambitious gym owners build profitable and sustainable fitness businesses. I'm your host, Andres Vujovic, and with every episode we deliver actionable insights, expert advice, and success stories to help you grow your memberships, streamline your operations, and achieve financial stability, even if you struggle with marketing challenges, maybe operational overwhelm, or financial limitations in the past. Today, we are joined by Chad Underwood. He's the founder of Modo Yoga Columbus. Chad's story is one of the resilience, growth, and deep community commitment. With over a decade of experience in the fitness industry, Chad transitioned from a full-time lawyer to a full-time yoga studio owner, successfully launching and expanding his Modo Yoga locations. From overcoming personal challenges to navigating business world, Chad is here to share insightful information into leadership, growth, and the importance of staying authentic in your values. Let's dive into the journey. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Andre. Thank you for having me on today.
Man, last time we talked, you are true inspiration, brother. You are somebody who is example of building American dream. You said how you combined all your passions. You like teaching, you like business ownership, and then you put it through your journey and getting yourself into one and going away from, somebody would say, safe, awesome career, being attorney and lawyer, right? So can you give us a hint a little bit about your mindset and why do you do things the way you do?
Yeah, so, I graduated from law school in 2011, and I was doing some private practice on the side, and then I actually fell into a role with working for the federal government here in the United States. So I was working for the Department of Defense doing contracting. And I thought, I was 24. I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do with my life. But after about a year or two of working, for the government, doing a lot of commuting, sitting behind a desk for 8 hours a day, I started to recognize that wasn't what it was for me. That wasn't what I wanted my life to look like. And I knew I needed to make a change, and I knew I needed to pursue something that I felt in my own heart was what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And through a long winding road, and you kind of touched on it, I had helped some friends start businesses as an attorney. I had been doing some adjunct professor work, so I was teaching, and I knew I really liked teaching. So I knew I wanted to start my own business. I knew I liked teaching. And then I started practicing yoga, which helped a multitude of ailments that I was personally going through. I had chronic lower back issues since I was like 10 or 11 years old. I was sitting behind a car or a desk for 11 hours a day. So just, in an unhealthy position, sitting often, lack of movement. And that led to poor eating decisions, poor health decisions. Because when I got home at the end of the day, the last thing I wanted to do was go work out. I just wanted to sit on the couch and open up a beer and just then go back to sleep and do the same thing that was making me unhappy again the next day. I found yoga down in Cincinnati. There were 3 Modo Yoga Cincinnatis. I was practicing there. I fell in love with it. And that first year that I took classes at Modo Yoga Cincinnati, I took 180 classes. And I started to realize that I could put this passion of like running my own business, or the dream of running my own business, a passion that I have for teaching, and then the passion that I had developed for the practice of yoga into one big ball. And I decided to start looking into opening up a Modo Yoga franchise. And here we are. If you fast forward 10 years later, we've got 2, and that's kind of how we ended up where we are.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that gives a story for many other businesses. I know a story for successful executives around the brands, for people who are founders of the companies. It's literally being customer of the own service. Like being a member of yoga studio, loving it, feeling it on your own life transition. It's the best way to say, hey, I love what I got. Let me do something so more people can be impacted. What if I can connect hobby, passion, and money making into one thing? You know, what is it? 72% people hate what they're doing. If you combine what you're doing and making money out of it, it's a game changer. Totally game changer. But let's talk about, this is cool. I like it. But we both know it wasn't a smooth ride. Saying, oh my God, you touch the bottom, you have studio. Just so people know, it's not from A to B, straight line. Would you mind sharing some of the deviation challenges that you find experience during the road? Something that teaches you a lesson.
No, I mean, one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of is, and I remember hearing this like when I was a kid, is like find what you love and figure out how to get paid for it. Well, unfortunately, when a lot of that, in a lot of those circumstances, when you figure out what you love and then you do figure out a way to get paid for it, it's no longer a passion. It's now your profession. And that can, in certain circumstances, take away the love that you originally had for the thing that you're pursuing. Like I know for a while, I grew up playing golf. Like I wanted to go work in the golf industry, and I recognized very quickly in seeing people that the people that were working in the industry didn't get to play golf. They didn't get to enjoy the game that brought them into working in the game to begin with. So the one thing that I wanted to be clear on when I was opening up a yoga studio is that I never wanted to lose that passion for practicing yoga. And I think that the way that we've done that is making sure that the yoga is what binds us together, and that's always at the centerpiece. But the real cornerstone of how we built our business was through the community. I'm from Columbus. I grew up in Columbus. I wanted to be in Columbus. I wanted to come and make a difference in my own community. And that was great. Me moving home, opening up a new business, my goal was to impact one person's life in the way that the yoga practice had impacted my own. I thought it was going to be hunky-dory. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought we were going to open up this hot yoga studio and people are going to love this practice and they're going to come on in. But unfortunately, that's not necessarily how it works. And in our circumstance, we opened up with free classes for the first week. And every single class that week was completely jam-packed. And then the free classes ended, and then reality set in. And we opened up a hot yoga studio in the middle of summer, and all of a sudden we go from teaching 35, 40, 45 people for this free week of classes, but then when we start asking people to pay money to come to our classes, all of a sudden we're teaching 2, 3, 4. And so that was kind of a rude awakening. But if you can look back on those times and recognize like how many times I had to pull money out of my own checking account so we can meet payroll for our teachers that we were hiring. The fact that I didn't draw a salary out of the business until we had been open for 3 years. Those were hardships that I learned, but what it enabled us to do was, because we didn't hit it hard on the ground running like we had maybe thought we would, we really had to focus on how we can build our business in an intelligent and thoughtful way. And we did that through giving ourselves opportunity, because we might not have been as busy as we thought, to put processes in place that could sustain the growth once the growth started, or that could help us manage the growth once it started happening. So those first couple of years, even if we weren't as busy as we wanted, and even though we weren't making money like we wanted to, it enabled us to get our processes in place to kind of like experiment with a lot of things, whether it be the schedule, whether it be with community events, whether it be with workshops. We were open to anything and everything, because we wanted to just figure out what it was that was going to work for our community. And we couldn't be afraid to try new things, because we didn't want to miss out on anything that maybe our community was asking for. So the biggest lesson from all of that was, number one, put processes in place that are going to help you when you grow, but also listen to your community. I mean, I remember we started offering like 4:30 p.m. classes, and 6 p.m. classes. Well, the messaging from our community was that 6 p.m. was too late. So, we had to take that feedback, and once we shifted it up to 5:30, all of a sudden we started seeing more people come in the doors that way. So, just constantly being open to change, but making sure that you're staying with what we intended to do, which was offer hot yoga in a place that felt like a second home. And that's what we've done over the last 10 years.
Let me tell you, you're not alone who is going through a dilemma at that time. And I want to ask you, when you went from 50, excitement like, oh my God, this is a dream come true, to going 2 to 3 classes, 2 to 3 people per class, and having to finance the business for years from your own money, have you come to the moment and says, you know what, I made a mistake, I gotta quit. This is not helping.
I wish there was some revelatory story of like this was my breaking point. Like I'm gonna have to shut my.
So there was no choice, no dilemma. I'm going to make this happen, or that's it.
Like honest to God, like I never wavered in what we were doing. It was maybe how we were doing it. I never thought it wasn't going to work, because even when we were having 2, 3 people coming to a class, I saw that the change in their physical, mental, emotional bodies and minds and hearts, I saw that the practice was impacting these folks in a positive way. But I also saw that the impact that just having this space to come to was having on people. So many times in this increasingly connected world, as we sit here thousands of miles apart over, computer screens, and we know that this happens more and more, right? COVID was an incredibly loneliness inducing period of time in a lot of people's lives. People crave connection, and it's getting harder and harder to find it. So when you find this person-to-person connection by being able to talk to your yoga teacher after class, or hey, why don't you come to our studio and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about your practice for 15 minutes after you get done with class. Like, tell me how this pose was affecting your body. Tell me how this is affecting you. Hey, I noticed something was off, like with your hip. You seem to be just kind of like favoring a little bit. Coming up with ways to connect with your students, and then figuring out ways to connect your students with one another. That is where the true essence of our business came from, and why I never wavered in whether or not it was going to be successful. I just always looked at it as this is a snowball rolling down the mountain, and it's going to start with one snowflake, and it's going to pick up a little bit of steam, and then it's going to become a snowball, and then it's going to become a snowman, and then it's going to become an avalanche. And it might have taken a lot longer than we had thought, but the vision was there, and the end result has been the same. And that's exactly how it has been. It has been, once you saw 2 people come in, you started seeing 4 people come in, and then you started seeing 10 people come in, and then you started seeing 20. And then it became, a pipe dream to have a second studio. The second studio became a necessity, not a desire, because we were turning people away from our first studio. And that was the last thing that we ever wanted to happen. So that's why the second studio became a reality.
I love that. And I love how you see it. It's all about perception. You didn't say, oh my God, my numbers are not growing. I don't know how I'm going to stay in this venture. But you says, no, I'm growing. My clients are growing. They're seeing the progress. I'm delivering. So what I'm doing makes sense. There's an impact. And it's all about what we focus on is what matters. Because you focus on why originally did you created yoga is that impact. And if you didn't see impact on them, if they were going worse, it would be different. But that's what everybody has to look like. Find something that you see it's driving mission, driving your passion, and invest heavily into that. I love the processes. I wish I did that when I opened my business. Everything that I'm starting now is starting with SOPs, protocol, processes, and it helps tremendously. So if you who is listening to this don't have this process documented, everything, hey, it's never too late to start. Do it now. And I want to talk about processes a little bit. You see, we went to a learning curve. You open one location, you open second location. First, tell me, what does 2035 look like 10 years from now from you?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out right now. So As of like 2 months ago, I'm now officially like full time with Modo. So I didn't know if I was ever. The dream was always to get to this point. But once I got to that point, I don't think I had ever really figured out what the next steps were. I think I've got at least one more in me here in Columbus, at least one, maybe two. So I think ideally, like that's where we land is 3 or 4 studios here in Columbus. And then from that point on, I think my eventual goal is to maybe not necessarily be a day-to-day hands-on owner, but start working with either folks that I've come across in my time at Modo or teachers who work for us now who are interested in moving to other cities and open up their own studios and start being a kind of a financial investor to help them start their journey onto this ownership path that they might be thinking of.
Helping others do exactly the same thing what you did.
And I think part of it too is like we've made a very conscious decision we don't just own our studios. We also we've purchased both of the buildings that our studios are in.
I love you said that.
And so for us, it's, I think in addition to opening up additional locations, the idea would be then to continue to purchase and operate additional buildings, whether they be as yoga studios or just as a purely a financial investment on a real estate, transaction. Maybe that's where we go as well.
Chad, I got to dig deeper into that. That's not something you often hear. People go into shopping centers, malls, plazas, they open up one of these, they lease locations and they go in. Why did you decide to purchase it, to own it? I mean, I know the reasons, but why wouldn't you follow everybody else's playbook?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was I had always wanted to own real estate. That was like kind of always where in the back of my mind, like, hey, this sounds crazy, but I'd watched the movie The Founder a long time ago. And one of the key tenets of how you see the Golden Arches have made their vast amounts of wealth over the last 5, 6, 7 decades is they own the land where their restaurants operate. It's they're a landlord first and a restaurateur second. And that's how they've created their massive amounts of wealth. And so for me, I always thought like let's figure out a way to defray our costs as a yoga studio, because when we signed our initial lease, we got dirt cheap. Like we moved into an area that was fairly underdeveloped. And there was actually a landfill on the back of the building that was being rehabilitated. And a lot of people asked us, like, well, why did you buy here? Like, or why are you moving into this location? Well, the answer to that question is it's really 50,000 cars drive by our building every day. And it's less than a mile from downtown Columbus, which is the hub of a metropolitan area of 2.5 million people. So, for us, it was the proximity to downtown and the cheapness of the initial rent. But what happened is while we had our first lease, we had 5 years with the 5-year option on the back end, the writing was on the wall for me because I saw everything being developed up around us. And so I knew that I might get 10 years into this building, but on year 11, one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to triple our rent and then it kills the business, or we're going to be forced to pack up and move and go somewhere else. And I didn't want to do that because then you're looking at a, $600,000, $800,000 build out that I'm then also not really going to be able to afford. So for me, it was trying to think about like, how do we make our business sustainable? And I ended up just approaching our landlord and saying, hey, I just want you to know that if you're ever interested in selling this building, I'm happy to open up discussions and figure out how we can make this happen. And his initial response was, hell no. He didn't want to sell it. Like he was looking at it as that was his meal ticket. That was kind of his retirement plan. And then about a year later, so I started looking at other locations. I was thinking we were going to terminate our lease before we exercised the option, and I was looking at buildings to buy, or I was looking at other buildings in the area, like just trying to think about like what the next steps were.
Sure.
And then COVID hit, which kind of put everything on a pause. And after about 6 months of after COVID hit, I think our landlord just decided he was just kind of done. He didn't, and he's still a good friend of mine. We play a lot of golf together. I think he just decided that he was ready to retire and be done with his investment, and he wanted to keep the building with a small business owner. And so he offered me to sell it to me, and we agreed on a price, and now we're our own landlord. And what that does to me is that locks in our rent for 20 years, and then when the mortgage is paid off, all of a sudden, then we're generating a lot of income for the yoga studios. And then we did the same thing with the second one, because we just recognized that if you have the ability to purchase your own building, and I realize that that's not realistic for everyone, but if you can do it, it protects yourself from rent increases or being kicked out of your own spaces, and you see that happen a lot.
And your investment stays with you. You have control over the whole property. You don't depend on anybody. And thinking about exit, every dollar goes back in. Plus, you can rent it, lease it. Even if you sell half of the business, you can still own the property and keep making money. It makes total sense.
There's tenants on the other side as well, and what we've done is integrate kind of like-minded businesses. So in the new studio in Clintonville, we have a Pilates instructor who offers privates and small group classes next door. So now you have this synergistic relationship between the Pilates studio and the yoga studio. And then in our original location, we have a law office in there right now, but what we're doing is they're moving out, and we're going to be putting in kind of like a collective of wellness individuals. So whether it be massage therapists or physical therapist or an actual therapist, just trying to come up with synergistic businesses that go well with our students that can, support these folks who are moving in on the other side, but then they can also support our students and make us a more well-rounded community.
If you're not getting enough leads, if Google seems to ignore you and your competitors are all over that Google map listing, it stings, but you're not alone in this. That's where Referrizer comes in. We help businesses like yours get more referrals and skyrocket your Google reviews so you start climbing those rankings. Ready to get seen and get leads? Check out Referrizer.com today.
What I like about your mindset, no means not now. Somebody said, no, I don't want to sell it. You're like, okay, you're not the only one. I'll find a place. That person probably felt it, saw it, that you didn't barge. It's like, okay, either I sell it to him or I lose him as a tenant. Anyway, let's negotiate. And you're not the first one that a lot of my friends did the same thing, even in the properties they were renting out as a residential. It's incredibly, when you ask people something, and even if they're so opinionated about no, you planted that bug in their mind, like, what if yes? And then sometimes COVID came in, or rain comes in, and the roof gets damaged, and they remember all the maintenance they need to do on the roof. Like, oh my God, this is not worth it. Boom. Hey, Chad, are you still up for the deal? Right? And then you get it.
Yeah.
It's being patient.
I think it's important to, for me, I try never to say no right off the bat. I am always open to have the discussion, because if you're open to at least having the discussion, you can always say no later. But if you say no right off the bat, then you're never going to know what could come of a certain, whether it be coffee or, hey, I'm reaching out to you with an idea. I'm always open to saying yes initially so I can have the discussion, because I never know what opportunities I'm going to miss out on. If you say no right off the bat and you close yourself off to new ideas and new experiences, then you're only doing yourself and your business harm. So why not have the discussion and see what can come of it? So, I appreciate my landlord being able to have that discussion, 5 years ago, and I'm going to keep having those conversations.
And we always ask ourselves, how many times did we stop ourselves from doing something just because of making assumptions or getting no from it, and we give up on it? Just go freaking and say yes, ask, and then things don't happen.
Yeah, and I think a good example, kind of bringing it back to the yoga piece of what we do is similar to this. Always saying yes initially. My rule is kind of give myself 3 months of something new, and if it's not working after 3 months, it's probably not going to work. And so like what I see a lot of gyms or yoga studios or fitness businesses do is try to be the jack of all trades instead of being like the master of one. And we fell into that trap because especially as we were trying to build our business, we were trying to offer mat Pilates, we were trying to offer bar, we were trying to offer non-heated yoga, we were trying to offer at one point we even had a local CrossFit gym come in. We had this bare space in our building. They were coming in to do classes there. We were trying to do classes off-site, yoga classes like in non-heated spaces. And what we found was when it came down to it, even if there were a few people that were really excited about that, our core business is we are a hot yoga studio. That is why people come to our space. And why not just do that one thing right, do it well, and take care of our core offering? Because I would rather be the master of one trade than the jack of the jack of all trades rather than master. I don't know. I can't. We might have to delete this portion because it's not spinning out right. But like, so we would try these things for 3 months at a time. And if they don't work, they don't work. And we just kept trying different things. And what it came down to is we are a hot yoga studio. And our teachers are top-notch instructors. We take care of our students. Like, let's lean into what we do great and do that one thing great. And if you want to go somewhere for bar, I can certainly recommend you a place to go to bar. If you want to go somewhere for Pilates, you can go next door to our studio in Clintonville. And, things like that. So there's always ways to, like, kind of enhance that community and still provide people what they need without actually doing it yourself.
And I gotta resonate with my own business as well and many others. I see the struggle. Everybody wants more and more and more. Like, how do I add value? By thinking like, what else can I add to the business? How can I serve more? Chad Holmes taught me a lesson saying you don't get to become a master by doing 10,000 things. You become master by doing one thing 10,000 times. And that really resonated because in my business, when I serve local businesses, I wanna develop every possible feature. And then once we did it, like those 3 exciting clients who really want to use it, then we figured out there are only those 3. And we start shutting down, deleting one at a time. Be good, be great in what your core business is, because that's how you become recognized. People carry the memory. People can remember business just based on one thing. What do you do? One sentence. Hot yoga. That's it. If they say, do you do hot yoga? You do Pilates. You do mindfulness. You do regular yoga. You do a lot of things. Like, okay, hold on. I'm not sure. It does not resonate with referrals. Does not resonate with people you're talking around about. So I love that, buddy. Let me ask you really a question that I wanted to ask you at the beginning of the show. Is scaling, opening new locations. You had to navigate through opening new franchises, and you learn certain things. So second location is much easier than the first one. Would you mind sharing with me and everybody listening, how do you make it easier? Like, what are the things that you would recommend now to somebody opening new location to do it better than what you did on the first one?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to kind of what we were talking about too, right? If, say, we had 5, 6 different class offerings that we were really kind of trying to duplicate, like, right? The idea was to make the second studio exactly the same as the first. So not just like from an operational standpoint, but from like when you walk into the main yoga studio that we have in our second location and you compare it to the first, same cork, same lighting, same heat panels, it feels exactly like the other room. Now the lobby has different decorations, the locker rooms look different, but when it comes down to the core offering, whether you're in Granby or you're in Clintonville, it feels the same. And for us, it was about trying to we knew what we were doing was working in our first location. So how do we just move it to a new location and continue doing it again. And that's done by, we have a ton of, and a lot of my team probably gets annoyed with me, but everything we do is so process oriented. Our cleaning checklists. You submit it every time you're done with your shift. Our front desk check-in process, exactly the same. But there's a guide, there's a how-to guide that we have for our studio that is, if you can't find the answer in there, I don't know where you're going to find it, because it is very comprehensive for how we operate our studios and the things that we're supposed to do at certain times, whether it be mopping, laundry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did was we just were able to take those lists and duplicate them. And there's going to be some adjustments, right? Like the layout of the space is the same. We have hand dryers in Clintonville. We didn't have them in Grandview, so we have to add some stuff like, different features or whatever, different amenities at both studios a little bit here and there. So you're certainly going to have to tweak it, but the process is the same. And so the fact that a teacher from our first studio can just walk over to the second studio and know that I have to do exactly the same things, they're just a little bit different, or things might be in a different spot than where they were. I can follow the same checklist and understand exactly what it is that I need to do. That makes the whole transition from Studio 1 to Studio 2 better. And whenever we go to 3, we'll be able to copy and paste those same processes to the third studio. And even if they're on kind of antiquated systems, like we use Excel, we use Word docs, the systems work because all it is a copy paste. And we're always looking for ways to improve, but the processes that we have in place don't change. And I think that's like kind of the biggest thing that we've been able to find in our success. Now, the other thing that we've had to do, that you do have to keep an eye on, is just making sure traffic patterns change. So, for example, at our first location, the 4 p.m. classes are pretty popular, and we're really close to I don't know if it's because we have a lot of teachers that come to those classes or whatever it might be. The noons are really popular because we're close to downtown, so a lot of people just kind of jet over for a noon class on their lunch break. Whereas our second location is in more of a residential neighborhood, and the 9 a.m. or the noons haven't been very popular because nobody's working in that area. If they go to work, they're going to where our first location is. So just understanding traffic patterns and the demographics of the area that you're in, that even if you have the same offerings, you might need to tweak the times that you're offering classes a little bit as you grow, but you have to constantly be taking a look at that stuff because it changes.
So you took what already comes with a franchise playbook, right? It's a lot of structure, but you took it to the next level. You went deeper. Okay, let me go in a micro element check boxes. What do you do?
As we are a franchise,
moment you walk out.
They provide us a big playbook for a lot of things, but the biggest piece for us is we're not mandated to have a front desk team. We're not mandated to have. We have a crew that helps and cleans in exchange for free memberships. So we call that our energy exchange team. That's something that we put in place. And so that's something that's been developed, and that's where a lot of those processes come into play, because it's a lot of the cleaning's all done in-house by our team, and it's repetitive in nature. So yes, we have the stuff that our Modo Yoga International provides us. It's mostly a lot of the marketing stuff, but as far as the actual day-to-day operations, we've had to implement all of those policies and all of those procedures ourselves.
And I believe, Chad, that some of others that they're looking at your success saying, oh my God, what are you doing differently? Let me have some of that. If not, after this episode, they will. So they'll come back to you and say, okay, can we get some of these checklists that you created, some of these processes, some of these elements? No doubt. Chad, I have a question. And now we're going to come to the end, but I got to ask you a couple of questions. You learned a lot about the industry, about yoga, about fitness, about running a business. Where do you go for your knowledge? Can you recommend us some resources, books, conferences, mentorships, events, podcasts, something that you believe it's a good resource for others to learn?
Well, so given that I'm fairly new full time, having the time and space to kind of like do conferences or go explore myself, that's like kind of a new reality for me. But I will say that there's a number of areas where I just get inspirations from and have pulled from different people. Or so the biggest thing for me is, the one that jumps to mind is, I listen to a lot of business podcasts. The number one for me is How I Built This by Guy Raz. It's a great podcast. I think it's done affiliated through NPR. And he just interviews people and talks about, how did you start your business? And there's a lot of them that are really successful, and they might interview founders of Google or founders of McDonald's. Comes to mind. McDonald's, Ray Kroc has been passed away for a long time, but like restaurants or tech sites like Uber or I remember one episode I had with Bumble, but like the one episode that sticks in my mind is they interviewed the person who started Dippin' Dots, the little ice cream of the future that's been the ice cream of the future for 30 years. And that story was almost a tragedy, because the guy who started Dippin' Dots never really made a dollar off of Dippin' Dots. So it's not just success stories, and he's not just interviewing people who are success stories. He's interviewing people who have made mistakes, who have screwed up along the way. And so for me, that's a great thing I listen to usually when I'm mowing the lawn. It's a great time to do that. There was another book when I was starting the studio, and it was called The 1 Minute Manager. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Richard Bannister. Is it Richard Bannister?
Honestly, I can't even remember. It's been a while since I've read it, but it's called The 1 Minute Manager, and it is a fantastic book. And what it is talking about how
Ken Blanchard.
Okay,
Ken
yeah,
Blanchard.
And a lot of the lessons in there I still carry with me to this day. In that, ultimately in the gym business, you're in the people business. Like your students or your clients are people. Your team members are people, and yes, you might be offering up a service, but ultimately we are in the interpersonal communication business. And we've all had bad bosses. We've all had people that make us feel bad. We have all had people who just demand way too much of us, or they communicate in poor methods, whether it be yelling, screaming, negative connotations, whatever it might be. And I remember reading that book, and a lot of the lessons in there are about how do you talk to your team members in a compassionate and empathetic way, so that like everybody gets better, both you as a manager and our team. And I've kind of taken that with our team motto is pretty good is better than perfect. And I'm a firm believer that if you expect perfection and perfection is expected of you, if you do mess up or if you do make a mistake, nobody's going to find out about it, because you're going to be scared to tell people. And if our team members make mistakes, I want to know. We want to know. You're never going to be upset. I'm never going to be upset with somebody.
A culture where mistakes are not hidden and shoveled under the rug.
I'm never going to be upset with people for making mistakes, because there's a way we can get better when those mistakes are made. Let's just prevent the same mistakes from being made over and over again.
Yes. Encourage, because that's how you learn. If you prevent mistakes, if you judge mistakes, people will stop taking risk. People will stop making decisions. They'll prolong, and then decisions are not made, and nobody does anything, and then things fall apart. So in the same in our company, I always says, by all means, fire at will, go learn. If you succeed, awesome. If you make mistakes, right, what did you learn from it? There's no such a thing as failure. Either you learn something or you succeed. Right? Just don't repeat it twice. So learn from that. I love that. Chad, you know other people in the industry. I believe you do. And one question I ask all my guests is, what would be 2 people you would recommend to come here and speak in front of the audience? Somebody maybe you know directly, or somebody you don't know and you want me to bring on the podcast and interview.
Oh, I mean, I do think that, the person that jumps to mind was, I think, the one that recommended you to come talk to me. So but I do think that, ultimately, especially if you're talking about Modo Yoga, the two founders of Modo, Ted Grand and Jess Robertson, have really shaped this community of studios worldwide through both creating the practice, but also in their actions and their thoughts behind it, and the intention in doing the Karma or our Modo for Good classes, and why we're all about environmental sustainability and also like social activism. So Ted and Jess are two people who, like, if you can pin them down for the time, would be wonderful to talk to just understand how we got to where we are, because they've been at this for 22 years. I also know that in Columbus, somebody that I take a lot of lessons from and look to and have learned a lot from, both personally and just watching their business, even if I'm not in their business, is there's a CrossFit gym in Columbus called CrossFit Grandview. And they do such an amazing job building their community and providing for their students and their members at their gym. They throw some amazingly wonderful parties, but they also have a full-on like support system in place. So massage therapists and physical therapists and dry needlers. And then they also have their own kind of life coaching and body coaching business along with their gym. And so the owners of CrossFit Grandview, Brandon and Kate Cowden, are two people that, I kind of look up to in my own community, just to keep an eye on what they're doing solely for the purpose of understanding like what the fitness world is like in Columbus.
Wow. Definitely appreciate, because last time I interviewed Emily, she was incredible here on the podcast as well from Modo. Love recommendation. And Chad, a final question for you is, because people are now looking at Chad and how they can connect with your brand and look more into what you're doing, or maybe ask you for advice. So how would you like to end? How would you like to share your information to people to connect with you for the future connection?
Well, number one, you can go to our website, modayogacolumbus.com. You can get a hold of us there. But for me, I'm not too active on social media. I try to maintain a relatively low profile. Plus, it's a little exhausting to think about posting and being constantly active. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at home, so that keeps me pretty busy. But I am on Instagram. You can follow the yoga studio at Modo Yoga Columbus, or you can follow me at Chad Underwood. That's probably the two, especially if you're out there in the U.S. or the world or wherever you're listening to this. That's going to be the easiest way to get a hold of me if you'd like to connect. But yeah, if you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, come on into Modo Yoga. We've got great hot yoga classes. You're going to sweat your butt off, and I know you're going to love it, because our whole goal every student who walks in the door, is that you feel better walking out than when you walked in. That's the goal.
That's the goal. Thank you, Chad, on behalf of the community, for great insights, for really sharing your story, your journey about opening locations and scaling, and your vision for the future, and some resources that people can take advantage of. And for you guys who are listening, make sure you like it, click, share, subscribe, so you can be tuned in with new episode and new coaching that's coming every week. Until then, signing off, Andre with Top Rated Gym. Thank you, Chad, for being here. If you are a gym owner looking to become a top-rated gym in your area, visit topratedgym.com and grab our free 30-day reputation boost. That's topratedgym.com. I'll add it to the show notes for you. Don't forget to share this with your friends. Stay strong, stay motivated, and keep pushing your gym to the top. Until next time, this is Andre signing off.